Hey guys, Verbal Engine 95, recording live from Willow County Prison Cell. Uh, yeah, I've been really tired these last couple of weeks with the weather getting what it is and whatnot, so it's been a little difficult to get these out, but I'm gonna try here, and I'm gonna try with one that's gonna be really hard because these are two very lore-heavy games that are also rather simplistic in their, like, the characters themselves are very simple in how they function and everything, and like how to ascertain their abilities, but there's a lot of lore that like gives substance and like context to these abilities. And you guys know I really hate diving through lore that is like not easy to gain unless you're like a fan of the property. And I have not played either of these games, so it's also going to really suck because these are very, like, the fan bases to both of these games are very loyal. So I'm probably going to get a lot of shit wrong and make not a lot of people mad, not that many people watch us. But, yeah, anyway, it's the Knight from Hollow Knight versus Ori from Ori and the Blind Forest. I believe that's the game. It's Blind Forest? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, two very popular modern Metroidvania kind of games. But yeah, I guess we'll start with the Knight. So there's gonna be very minimal character work in this because again, I'm not super familiar with the lore for both characters. But the Knight is what is referred to as a vessel, right? It's a discarded right. So there's this figure called the Pale King. Right, it's the Pale King and then somebody else, and it's like the combination of two souls, but it's also a being that comes from like an abyss of like pure darkness and whatnot. Yeah. Anyway, it's a big walking shadow with a mask on, or it's called its shell. Yeah, and it's the Knight's job to basically fight a bunch of bosses that represent the light, but also that represent, like, it's what's called the infection, but the light isn't like it's not like insecticide, it's not like it's not like insect like. In fact, the Knight uses a lot of insect based stuff in terms of, yeah, so maybe it's like from the perspective of it's like got a whole moth to the flame aspect to it. I don't know. Anyway, this Knight is this very, very small creature who walks around with, it's not a sword, but it's used as a sword. It's referred to as a nail. And yeah, and it sword fights with this nail, though this nail gets like an upgrade to be like a super form at some point. Yeah, and essentially throughout its journey, the Knight gains a lot of other equipment and whatnot. Things like equipment that lets it climb walls, equipment that lets it double jump, equipment that lets it dash, equipment that etc., etc. It gains a lot of things known as charms, which are generally with like those bugs I was talking about, where like the bugs team together with it or it contains like their gratitude, I guess, is the term that the game uses, and that allows the Knight to basically buff its stats in a lot of different ways. However, it can also, it's very limited in how it can use these. Not very limited, but like limited in how it can use these because A, it can only use so many of them, but also B, if it uses, I forget how in game it works. It's like if you use more charms than there are slots or something, it can gain a status which is called Overcharmed, which makes it more susceptible to damage. It doubles any damage taken, so it would like greatly. So it actually debuffs it. Funny enough, and yeah, and there's also like this aspect that allows it to heal and regain energy called Soul. which is generally the more damage it does and the more enemies it hits, the more soul it gains. But that's, I would imagine, an in-game mechanic and not, or it's relative. That's like specific to its universe. It's not like soul is it's not like the force or something where it's like an internal energy source. It's like, no, this is, or like it's existed all in the universe. This is like though I believe you can pull soul from the air, so maybe in like neutral territory, you know, you could do that. But like hitting, basically it allows it to regenerate its energy, right? Not its health, but its energy. But there is also I believe a skill or a charm that lets you regenerate your health using soul. So that works. Yeah, but that's, and there's multiple different endings that greatly affect the lore and you know, give it different feats and whatnot. But I think technically the knight is a very powerful creature. Like, don't get me wrong, with relative to its universe, it's very powerful. It's just very hard to scale it without context. So this would be an episode Death Battle themselves would have to do and like provide all of this information, because for me it's really hard to like do that without just going and like spending weeks on end researching these or just playing the games, neither of which I have time to do. Anyway, on to Ori. So Ori is a kind of like, I don't know what creature it's supposed to resemble. It's like a forest creature. It's described as being a small forest creature, which is why it's like so frail, I guess you could say. Actually, I don't know. I know the knight's genderless. I don't know if Ori is genderless as well. But Ori is, however, Ori has a connection to this being known as, I think it's pronounced Seen, something like that, right? Which is described as the light of the ancestral tree, and the ancestral tree is like the world tree, I guess, in this universe. So it's like you know, and in this universe, the light is it is like a life force kind of thing. It does exist in all beings, and it's, you know, and it is the force of creation in this universe, right? Using the light, Ori can do a multitude of things, such as you know, like energy sort of attacks, whether it be short range or long range. Can do things like rapid fire, multi-directional thing, you know. Can do like spatial attacks where the you know, where it like creates like an explosion of the light. It can do you know, it can create weapon constructs like swords, bows, axes, hammers, even like shurikens, like giant shurikens, all with different functionalities. It can surround itself. It can like use it to jump higher. It can use it to ricochet off of things. It can use it to charge at people. It can surround itself for to be able to like dive into like sand or water at full speed. It can use it to increase its speed. It can use it to you know, like heal itself. It has the light has so many different properties to it in this game, and things like double jumping, wall bouncing, things like that, those are skills that you learn in the game, but they are like separate from the light, which is significant because Seen is not only just like a source of this energy that you like draw from, it's also like a guide. Seen is also like a voice that instructs Ori on what to do and where to go and how it can do things. So, which is very significant because like you wouldn't know how to, both of these games require like reflexes and navigational abilities, so having like a guide that tells you what you can do and where is really significant. So getting into this fight. So I'm more inclined to go with Ori on this for the following reasons. Now, the knight has a lot of different abilities, has a lot of versatility, has a lot of experience, etc. A lot of really good feats. However, most of the abilities that the knight uses, things where it can like shoot fire and shoot like either specters or souls at you and whatnot. That whole Shadow of the Abyss thing I mentioned, like that's an energy source as well that has like a completely different aspect to it. All of the, like half of the things that the knight can do using these abilities, Ori can do like without them. Like the knight needs specific items to wall climb and double jump and air dash and do things like that. Uses specific items for that. Ori, either whether it be with the light or just as a learned skill that Ori gets down the line, Ori can just do that innately. Right? Which means that the knight... now, these are all things the knight has, don't get me wrong, but, like, if we're talking about... Like, let's not even get into the logistics of carrying all of these things with you, but, like, let's talk about, like, if one of these things were to be destroyed, or if one of these things were to be, you know what I mean? If like, then, or get dropped or something, that takes away, like, that just completely takes away an ability from the knight at that point. Not to mention, the knight is used to, assuming we were in neutral, like, I would assume in a neutral territory, the knight would still be able to draw soul from the air, like from the air around it, and Ori would be able to, like, use the light that is basically existent in the entire world. Now there is like an energy source in, like, there is an energy meter. I think they're called pads. Not pads. It's like an energy bar in the Ori games, but like they do naturally refill. So like it is the same sort of thing where it's just drawing from the world, which makes sense because Sheen is literally like the voice of the world tree essentially, which is basically providing this energy to the world. So assuming they were in neutral territory, both characters would be able to do, like, you can't say oh, it's in a completely different location, therefore the world tree doesn't exist, but the abyss doesn't exist either. Like, you're nerfing both characters. You need both characters to be, like, potentially at their peak, but at the same time, like, the reason, if the knight gets soul from, like, attacking enemies, which generally, like, it doesn't contribute to a lore available answer that of why that's possible unless the enemies have this energy source themselves, in which case Ori doesn't, so that wouldn't be available. But like the knight generally is used to having soul available from the environment and also from the enemies it attacks, whereas Ori can do everything it does with just the environmental energy, which to me would suggest that the light is a lot more powerful than the abyss, or the light of the ancestral tree is a lot more powerful than the abyss, right? Also, the abyss is kind of like the ancestral tree has like a will and like an intelligence behind it. So if we're talking about like power sources here and like the all-consuming world sources here, the abyss is considered like it'll strike at anything. It loses its like kind of agency if unless like a light is shown on it, in which case it like stops moving. Which is really kind of shitty if that comes into play, because then that just means like Ori hard counters the knight in that case, because it's like, oh, your like general source of power being soul, which originates from the abyss, right? Light is the thing that like stops that, and Ori is just using light on you, which would be kind of shitty. But at the same time, that just might be the result of the matchup because of that. It might just be, I was gonna say, if that's not a factor, and we don't have like Ori, like the fact that Ori's using light, like we don't have light beats dark as a rule in this matchup, then this fight could go maybe 50-50. I'd still lean slightly towards Ori, like I said, because the knight needs a lot of additional, like the knight requires like cutting off half of the knight's available source of soul if it can't get it from enemies would pretty much like handicap it. And the fact that all of the items are required for it to do all these things that Ori can do normally, is kind of like less dependable than Ori's abilities. So like, again, if something were to break, if it were to get disarmed or something, like that would make me lean towards Ori anyway. But if we put in the fact, like, in order for the knight to be able to do that, in my opinion, in order for the knight to be able to do that, where it, gains soul from striking enemies, even though Ori wouldn't have soul, you would also have to bring in the abyss and the ancestral tree into the fight, in which case I think Ori wins anyway, because like I said, the light can necessarily destroy, or not destroy, but like basically cripple the abyss, right? Which leaves the knight like defenseless pretty much. At the same time, it's not just the concept of light either, because like there are lights you use in Hollow Knight that let you navigate darkness and stuff. So it's not just the concept of light, it's like light in a like astral sense, you know what I mean? Yeah, in like a celestial sense, which would be the light of the ancestral tree. Yeah, and also, and again, a small thing here, but the knight kind of has to do everything by itself, whereas, like I said, Ori has the, Ori being the voice of the, or Scene being the voice of the ancestral tree, Ori basically has somebody who can identify and like give it information and guide it throughout the fight, which the knight really doesn't have. Now, to be fair, the light is used to fighting like beings of darkness, or beings of light rather, right? So like experience wise, it probably has a lot of, it probably knows what to do against a foe like Ori, but like that's different from having, a pre-generative deity like being basically tell you what's going on. So yeah, I think in most, like, even if they would have to literally design the fight in a way that caters to the knight, in my opinion, for this to win. Because like I said, unless there's some other, and there very likely is, unless there's like some huge lore shit I'm missing, where like the knight isn't, where like soul actually destroys light or something like that, and then it's just a back and forth. I think Ori probably takes it in most cases, but I'm ready to be screamed at and told I'm wrong here. Anyway, Verbal Engine 95. See ya.